Hello, Coach Holmes here, and today we're going to be talking about dilations. Okay, it's another type of transformation we're talking about, but this one's completely different from the other three. As in, after you dilate a figure, it's not going to be congruent. That is the biggest thing that I want you to understand. Dilations means that the figure is not going to be congruent because dilation is a transformation where a figure is enlarged or reduced in size by a fixed point. Okay? Dilation is a transformation where a figure is enlarged, which means bigger, or reduced, which means smaller, in size by a fixed point. And that fixed point is always going to be at the center, or at the origin, which is 0, 0. Okay, so we don't have to worry about any other type of dilation at a certain point. We just got to worry about the ones at the origin. However, we do have a scale factor. And what the scale factor is the value in which a figure is enlarged or reduced. Reduced by. Okay? So typically, a scale factor is going to tell you if it's going to get bigger or if it's going to get smaller, but it tells you by a certain factor. And here's what we do know, is that if k is greater than 1, that's going to be an enlargement. However, if it's smaller than 1, it's going to be a reduction. Okay, which means it's going to get smaller. Because remember, if you double the size in something, that means it's getting bigger. If you cut something in half, this means it's getting smaller. Okay, so that's how we know which ones are enlargement and which ones are reduction. So what you got to keep in mind is anything bigger than 1 is an enlargement, anything smaller than 1 is a reduction. Now, in order to find scale factor though, we know that P prime, if it's from the center, if a dilation is from the center, the dilation is going to be Kx, comma, Ky. So initially, all we have to do, where K is the scale factor, that's what our scale factor is. Scale factor is our K. So basically, all we have to do is multiply by the value, and we get our dilation. Now, how do we find scale factor? Well, scale factor is the image divided by the pre-image. Okay? And again, K is the scale factor. Okay? So that's a certain thing that whatever the value is, whatever the value of K is, you're multiplying it by that point. Okay? Now, let's try a couple of examples where we have to find the scale factor. So what I gotta do is, I want to pick a point. So it doesn't matter which point I pick, but let's try to keep it simple by saying I want to pick this value R right here, or R prime and R. Now remember, R prime is the image, and this blue right here is the pre-image. Okay, so that's something we do got to keep in mind. Now, this R prime is, so we don't really have to do the whole point. We just got to pick one value from X, either X or Y. But let's say I want to pick X. So R prime over R would give us 3 over 1. because the x value of r prime is 3 and the x value of r is 1. So really, if I divided it out, I get 3. And if you don't feel certain about it, let's pick another point. So like q prime, for example, and q, so let's say I do the x value still. The x value of q prime is 9. The x value of q is 3. 9 divided by 3 gives us 3. So my scale factor for this is actually 3. Which means this is an enlargement. This figure in the blue is getting bigger. Okay? Now, the next thing I want to check out is this graph right here. I still want to be able to figure out the scale factor for it. So what I got to do is, again, I just got to pick one point. So let's say S prime and S. So remember, S prime over S gives me 2 over 4. And those are my x values, which happens to also be y as well, but let's just say those are the x values. Well, 2 over 4 is 1/2. And again, if you're still uncertain, let's take the p prime and p. Okay? So the p prime, the value for p prime, that is x. Yeah, let's just focus on the x because I don't like the half. So that's 1/2. That's 1. The x value of p prime is 1. I'm sorry. The x value of p prime is 1. But the x value for p is 2. So my scale factor for this is 1 over 2. Which means that this is a reduction. This means it's getting smaller. Now the next thing I want to do, I want to be able to enlarge this figure right here. I want to make it bigger. So it just so happens to be that the scale factor is 2. So for both x and y, I'm multiplying by 2. So for this point right here, this is 2. This is 1, 1. So 2 times 1 is 2. 2 times 1 is 2. So that would be my new point. I have 3, 1, which tells me it's going to be 6, 2. Because 3 times 2 is 6. 2 times 1 is 2. Next I have 2, 4, which means I'm multiplying 2 by 4. And I'm multiplying 4 by 2, which is 8. And then I have the point 4, 4, which means I'm multiplying both 4's by 2, which gives me 8. 8. So this is what my dilation will look like, okay? This is what my dilation of the figure will look like. But the scale factor is 2, so it's getting bigger, okay? So of course it is happening to be getting bigger. And of course it's also going through some of this. That's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Just as long as you get the points right and the enlargement. Next, I have to do a reduction. So I'm looking at my values. So basically, I'm looking at my points, and I got to reduce each point by 2. So I got to divide by 2, basically. So for example, this is 5, 6. So I'm going to do 5 over 2, which is about 2.5. And then 6 divided by 2 is 3. So that's my point right there. Next, I'm going to go to here to 10, 6. Divide 10 by 2, which is 5. Divide 6 by 2 is 3. Next I have 10, 10, which is 10 divided by 2 is 5. 10 divided by 2 is 5 again. And then I have 8, 9. I'm sorry, not 8, 9, 8, 10. 8 divided by 2 is 4. And 10 divided by 2 is, 8 divided by 2 is 4. And then 10 divided by 2 is 5. So that's what my figure will look like that is reduced by a half. So it's basically half. So basically, all sides are half the length of this figure right here. Okay? So basically, with dilations, we got to remember that in order to make something bigger, we're multiplying a value larger by 1. And if we reduce something, we're multiplying or dividing a value that is less than 1. Okay? But remember, we just got to multiply the values. Okay? We got to multiply each point by the scale factor in order to get our dilation. Thank you and have a good day.